Welcome to the Matson Shooting Academy podcast. If you're a clay target shooter, then we have what you're looking for. Speaking with some of the best in the industry about the game you're passionate about. Subscribe to the Clay Lab on YouTube and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or your favorite podcast platform. The Matson Shooting Academy podcast is brought to you by Castellani USA, Greenwood Custom Stocks, and Ranger Eyewear. Here's your host, Cody Matson of Matson Shooting Academy.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Matson Shooting Academy podcast. We have a special guest on the show this evening. We have Aniston Hamil. She is a competitive shooter for the Emmanuel University team and the very first MSA associate instructor. So very excited to have her on the show and hear what she has to say about her experience in the clay target games. So Aniston, welcome to the show.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so tell me what you've been up to.
So here lately, obviously, I'm attending Emmanuel University. I'm a senior there. So I've been there all 4 years, and I end up graduating in the fall of this year, which is super exciting. But definitely, when I look back, it's crazy how much time has flown by.
Yeah, it seems like it was just yesterday you're going off, or you're signing from Strong Rock.
Yes.
You're signing on with Emmanuel, and that time flies.
It really does. Here lately, we just got back from a long break, and we're getting back in the swing of things. We've been practicing, and we're preparing for a Lower East Coast Championship. We're headed to Savannah. I think that's like the second weekend in February. We're preparing for Jack Links, which it'll be my first time there, which I'm super excited. I've never been there before, and it's definitely an experience. I've heard a lot of good things about it. And then we'll also have Seminole Cup this semester, and then our last big competition is ACUI SATP Nationals, which is in Texas.
Wow. It sounds like you got a jam-packed schedule.
Yes, we do.
So that's got to be a juggling act for you. I know academically that's super important for you to make good grades and everything, which congrats, by the way. You're on the president's list again, I think I saw.
Yes, sir.
That's awesome. Good for you. And talking about school, we'll get back to your shooting in a minute, but what are you majoring in?
I'm actually majoring in graphic design with a minor in business.
That's exciting. So I've seen some of the stuff that you put out. You've done a lot of my flyers for me. And recently you did an animation that kind of stepped everybody through skeet and trap and everything.
I did.
Tell me about that.
So I had an assignment for a motion graphic class that I took last semester at Emmanuel. And at first it was kind of overwhelming. I didn't know what to expect out of the class as a whole. But our final was we had to put a explainer video together, and that was going to be our final grade for the class. So I was like, what not better to do it about shooting?
Yeah.
Skeet, trap, sporting clays, because I feel like we don't see a lot of videos that can show you the game without picturing it. Like,
right. Hard to explain.
Right. It's usually hard to explain, and you're trying to picture things in your head. So I was like, well, that would be something perfect that I could do. And it turned out really well. I was super happy with it, and it got a lot of good feedback. And it was just so fun to put together. It was definitely time consuming, but looking back at it now, I'm super proud of how it turned out. It's definitely a fun project.
It looks really good. So anything that you get involved in, you seem like your personality, knowing you for the 5 or 6 years that I've known you, you go all in on everything. With going back to your shooting with the school, how do you juggle that? How do you balance between, keeping the grades up, having time to practice, your travel schedule? I mean, what have you found or words of wisdom that you can share with other collegiate athletes out there? Because you seem to do a great job of balancing everything you got to do.
Yes, it's definitely different trying to navigate through the different semesters because you have a certain amount of hours. That can change. Like last semester I had 18, this semester I have 14. So there is a difference on how many classes I'm going to take and what that workload might look like. Navigating through it, I would say that designated time, like in the mornings or before you go to a class, like make sure you have all that homework done. So when you get out of class, you can go practice on your own and setting up a schedule. Like I know I can go and write down on a piece of paper, okay, I have class from 9 to, I don't get out until 2 o'clock. But I can get up a little bit earlier, make sure some of my homework assignments are done. Trying to get ahead and work ahead, I feel like it was really important because I didn't have to worry so much about when I got out of class, oh my goodness, I have this homework assignment to do. But I was like, I can just go and practice and just focus on that. And when I get back that evening, I just need to knock out a few little things. But for the most part, getting ahead definitely helped for sure.
I think hearing you talk about that, I mean, that's just all ties back to discipline, right? And I think that your shooting, you've been very disciplined in that as well. You've practiced on a regimented schedule. And that's just something that I think the game of sporting clays and shooting is just an awesome byproduct that it teaches discipline, right? If you want to achieve high levels and, shooting, you got to have that discipline in there. So that's pretty cool. I think that served you well for sure. So going back to the shoot, so the first one, that Lower East Coast, is that an ACUI event?
That is an ACUI SCTP event. Typically, we'll shoot everything: skeet, trap, sporting clay, super sporting, and then we also have doubles skeet and doubles trap that we'll compete in. And basically, all those scores will put us in a certain competing category at nationals. So if you don't necessarily go to those, I guess, qualifying shoots, then you'll be labeled in like an unknown class because they didn't have any of those scores this year to put you in the proper classification you would need to be in.
Got it.
So we're able to travel to Savannah and do that. So it's exciting.
Wow, that's really cool. So that's all shot at Forest City then?
It is. Yes.
That's great. Yeah, that's a wonderful venue. They sure have a lot to offer there. So going back to all the different disciplines, which ones do you enjoy? What's your jam?
It's crazy because there are so many.
Yeah.
And I know when I competed in high school, we only did the basic skeet, trap, sporting, because when you travel back to Savannah, because Forest City always held our high school state meets, we only did those things. My favorite is always sporting clays. It's always been a joy because to see the different target presentations, it's so different than skeet and trap, which we, would practice all the time, and it's the same thing over and over. You get your technique and then you're good to go. When I came to college, I'd actually not really shot doubles trap ever. I don't think I ever competed in a competition with doubles trap. Other than that, doubles skeet, shooting those in shoot-offs on 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah.
That's usually as far as I got with that. And doubles trap is it is a lot of fun. If you ask some of my other teammates, they might not 100% agree because I think it's a wave of emotions. But I think that one, since I don't get to shoot it a ton, it's probably one of my other favorites.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, that's pretty cool. Keeping that balance amongst the disciplines, I mean, do you find that your core methodology, transfers over each discipline? I mean, you feel like if you're a good sporting shooter, that carries over to doubles trap. And
I really do think so, especially when we have practices and we have so many athletes on the team. Sometimes you're like, okay, do I want to wait for like a skeet round? Do I want to wait for a trap round? And it never fails, since we have a 5 stand on our property now, I'll go and practice all the birds at the 5 stand, and I feel like I've gotten a good practice for me to be able to go and effectively shoot on skeet as well as trap. And then we'll have certain practices that are designated to, we'll turn our machine to throw the doubles trap. And then when you're on the skeet field, it's just those crossing birds. So it just feels like sporting all over again.
yeah. So how many shooters are on the team now?
We have about 28, 27-ish shooters. We've gained a lot more since I've been there.
Yeah.
And it just keeps growing from year to year.
It seems like I'm seeing all the time that the team is signing and recruiting new students. So let's kind of paint the picture for, if a young and upcoming shooter is considering like shooting in college, what was your draw to Emmanuel? What was that recruiting process like? Like, what type of resume were you trying to build, to, get towards that? Cause that was your goal from kind of the start. So.
Right. So I actually didn't have any intentions in attending Emmanuel. I didn't even know that Emmanuel kind of existed. I initially wanted to go to Auburn University, which I quickly changed my mind when it came to my senior year of high school, and we went and competed in Savannah at Forest City. And we just so happened to run into Coach John and Miss Gina Sheely they're the head coaches of Emmanuel shotgun team. When we got to talking to them and I figured out what degrees Emmanuel offered, and I was like, they also have a shooting team. Like, how neat would that be? Because initially I didn't really look at any other schools that were terribly far from home, because I wasn't really interested in, being a flight away from home or a super long drive. But it just kind of worked out that Emmanuel was awfully close to home, and the coaches have just been amazing. Like, if you know John and Gina, they are the best around. You can't beat them as coaches, and they were all so welcoming, and they always reached out, always were there for you if you wanted to, chit chat more about the program. I know I went and toured. I actually toured in the off season when all the athletes were at home for our long Christmas break, winter break. So I went and toured, and it went really well. And I knew that the school was small, but I didn't know how small it actually was. And I was iffy at first, but when I stepped foot at the facility where we practice and train, I knew it reminded me of home. And I was like, maybe I am supposed to be here. Maybe Auburn isn't in the picture, which was okay, because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to major in at the time. But I knew, okay, I have this wonderful opportunity to continue to shoot in college. And I was like, I love the sport so much. I don't want to kind of put it on the back burner and not be able to do it all the time like I do now. And the rest was history. I signed that December-ish, and then I graduated from high school in 2021, and then attended that next fall.
That's great. Well, I know John and Gina, they really create a family atmosphere with that team, and I know that was really important for you. And it seems like the team's got a lot of cohesion, and it's been great to watch everybody evolve and shoot, and it's been a lot of fun. So, well, that's pretty exciting. Jam-packed schedule for that. You mentioned Jack Links, so I think that's a first for you going down there to shoot that at Quail Creek.
Yes, and I'm super excited. I've heard just so many good things, and it's definitely been one of my bucket list places to go, especially for that competition in particular. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So going into the travel shoots and everything, so you've shot a lot in the Georgia area, and over the last few years, you've had the opportunity to travel with the school and go to different venues and go to different places. What do you like about that? What's the appeal? I mean, you've called me after going to different venues and everything, and it's just so neat. But tell people, what do you like about that?
I think my favorite thing is seeing the different gun clubs that are out there. In high school, I didn't really travel much out of Georgia to go see any of these places. And since I've been in college, I've been to all over the place, from Texas to Ohio to Florida, South Carolina, Tennessee. And it's just been such a great experience to see the different types of targets that they can throw at these certain places. Stuff that maybe we don't get back home in Georgia. And these gun clubs some of them are really, really nice. And you can tell how much work and effort that they put into making competitions flow and go so well. So I just think my favorite thing is just seeing all the people you get to meet out there, and meeting the people that set some of these targets, and meeting people that just work in the clubhouse facility. They're just always so kind, and they're always there to help. And I just love looking back on pictures, especially just seeing all the different places we've been able to travel to. It's definitely something that not a lot of people are fortunate to do. And I couldn't be more thankful to be able to travel with the team and experience those things.
Yeah. I mean, what a cool opportunity, to do that with college, and that's super cool. Yeah. Those are some of my favorite things about it too, is just, it's really the people you meet. I mean, this sport and industry is just filled with such great people, and, you make lifelong, connections and everything. And it's, I always joke, it's the same faces in different places, you see a lot of the same people there. And so kind of tie it into your shooting and, filling in your backstory. Some of the folks may not know you out there. So, I want to kind of explain your journey as a shooter, coming up, and how did you get your start in it? What did that look like? Kind of go back to, maybe your first shot or whatever you started in, but kind of fill in your backstory a little bit for people.
So I grew up originally playing soccer, and I still continued to play soccer all through middle school and high school. But my dad and my grandfather actually shot and competed when we were little. I can remember seeing pictures of me and my younger brother. We would be in the club car with our overhead fans, our earmuffs on, and we would be in our car seats watching them compete and just being there. And it was always just a really cool experience. I joined the Strong Rock shooting team in 7th grade. So before I joined it in 7th grade, they were just a club team. And 7th grade, they became an actual team where we would be able to go different places and then compete in Savannah at state. We had a lot of kids come through on that team, and we had a lot of good success. And just seeing the team grow throughout my middle school and high school years was definitely something that I cherish. I just loved having all of us together and be able to have everybody after school. We would all just go to shooting practice. We'd either be at Griffin Gun Club or Cherokee Rose shooting, and it was always just so fun. After that, competing through high school was definitely, it had its ups and downs. It was challenging. Everybody was really good, and you just wanted to make sure that you were able to compete against them well. I attended the Geisa State my senior year, and that's kind of when my shooting took off more, because then I got to commit to Emmanuel. And I remember attending Emmanuel my freshman year. It was hard. I wasn't terribly far away from home, but just that adjustment going from private school and living at home all the time and being able to compete and practice with my dad and my brother. Like, it was always just the same. And then moving to school, it was different, because then you would meet new people and like contact your teammates. So like, hey, do you want to go practice? Because we practice once a week together, and then you can go out on your own and practice any of the other days that you're able to. The adjustment was hard. I didn't know if I was going to stay at Emmanuel, but I know my parents were like, you can definitely do this. And I know we had conversations about like, it's a different adjustment. I'm very thankful for the coaches that I do have and how they were so opening. They opened their household up to everybody, and they were like, if y'all need help, like, you can come and chat with us. And I remember that I was like, I want to continue to do what I love, and I don't want something or an obstacle to stop me from doing what I love. So I'm just going to have to like fight for what I want to do. And I know that it was where I was meant to be at Emmanuel. After looking back, being a senior now and seeing how far I've come in my shooting journey, it definitely is really inspiring for myself to look back on it and know that I stuck with it, and I was determined to overcome those obstacles of fear and like uncertainty and not knowing what my next step in my shooting journey or career was. But it definitely has shaped me to be who I am today, and it's definitely been something that I've cherished. And all the coaches and my parents and you and everybody being so supportive of my journey, because at the time nobody had committed to shoot anywhere. I was the first commit from Strong Rock, which is super exciting. I remember my signing day was just full of so much joy because nobody had ever done that before. So being a part of that was something that was just special, especially being a female in the sport. You don't see that a lot either. And it was just something that I'll always remember.
Yeah. And that's so, I was there for that signing and just seeing the joy on your face and, the happiness that brought everybody. It was difficult for you, going away and shooting. And, I think that anything in life, all the challenges you face, if there was a person about to do their signing and now having seen it full circle, right? Now you're a senior, now you can look back on it. What would you tell that person? Just stay the course, or what kind of advice would you give them to put their mind at ease that it all is all going to work out and like it has for you?
Right. And it's definitely different from person to person. I know we've also had commits that just couldn't hang tough and stick it out. And I remember that I wanted to be somebody that reached out to all of our commits and made sure, like, if you ever need anything, like, all of us are here for you. If you just need somebody to talk to, if you just want to go practice, like, if you want to practice, please reach out. Because I think that's one thing that I was always nervous to reach out to people, because I didn't know if they wanted to put in as much work as I wanted to. And, if you want to go practice sporting clays, sometimes you kind of need a puller, especially for skeet and trap, because we didn't have microphones at the time. So I would definitely say, don't be afraid to reach out to those teammates. And if you're homesick, I feel like everybody goes through it at one time. And I feel like sometimes it's not talked about a lot because they feel like they're the only person on the team that's kind of going through that. I would say stick to it. I remember I had a lot of prayers. I was like, I don't know if I'm strong enough to hang in there. You just feel like you're the only one. I know other people, they attended universities and colleges. They knew somebody going there. So it was kind of like, okay, they already had a friend there. I had nobody. I didn't know anybody on the team that well. And I knew of Coach John and Miss Gina, but didn't have as close as a relationship as I do with them now, and as well as all the athletes on the team. So I'd say definitely stick it out. At least a semester. Give it a whirl. And if you don't like it after a semester, you can always transfer. There's nothing bad in transferring, trying out a different school, or maybe you just realize maybe shooting in college is not what you thought it was going to be. And that's okay. You can still go out and shoot NSCA registered events. You don't have to necessarily be on a collegiate team, but I would say if you stick it out and you hang tough in there, that it's all going to be worth it. You realize when you move into your sophomore, junior, senior year, and you look back, you're like, I definitely was thankful that I had those people that I reached out to and just didn't, sulk in your room by yourself in your dorm or anything like that. So I would say it's definitely worth it. Just make sure you reach out to those people because I know everybody will be happy to help.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true with anything is, don't be afraid to ask for help. And, I think in shooting, we've got a wonderful community. And, let's face it, the game is an emotional roller coaster.
Yes.
I mean, there is highs and there is lows of lows and there's everywhere in between. Such is true in life that you need the lows to appreciate the highs. You need that, those losses to make you appreciate the wins on that stuff. And you need to be away from home to make you appreciate home. But I've seen so much growth in you as a person and your development, that experience of, college has really, just made you flourish in a lot of different ways. And I think that people facing the pressures of, okay, I just signed with the school or, I started with this SETP team, think a lot of the pressures that I see students put on themselves is just that. They put that pressure on themselves, right? To expectations, this or that. And yeah, some parents definitely put pressure on their kids to perform. But I think that managing those pressures along with everything else in life, that's really challenging to do. And what are some of the things that you've done to help manage those pressures? What in your shooting, in your training, like, what are you doing to manage that stress?
I would definitely have to say that if you are competing on a collegiate team and you just signed and you're joining the team that fall, that you don't have to prove anything to anybody. The coach knows how well you shoot because you made it there in the first place. And I think that's something that a lot of people are like, oh, I have to make sure that I shoot good all the time because they feel like they have something to prove to like their fellow teammates. But the coach signed you on there and invited you to join that team for a reason. That means you serve a really good purpose on the team because you have really good shooting capabilities. I went through that phase because you always run into comparison throughout the game. You think that you might not compare to others, especially when you feel like you put in so much work and you don't see them putting in as much and they're still really good. It is definitely challenging to overcome those things because the hardest thing I feel like in shooting is what goes on between your two ears. It's filling yourself with all these positive thoughts instead of negative. We had a little assignment that we did that Coach John and Miss Gina wanted us to watch this sermon. And I remember the pastor, it's like, think about what you think about. And one of the main points that it talked about our thoughts is that it's like bees in a hive. They either bring honey or they bring sting. And when you think about that, it's like, that's so true. Like, I'm usually filling my brain with all these positive thoughts, but also like that sting creeps in, telling you like you're not good enough and you can't put up the scores or contribute to the team like you think you can. And it is challenging at times, but I think you just have to put your foot down and build more confidence in yourself because everybody around you is cheering for you. Nobody wants you to fail. Everybody wants you to succeed. And that's what you have to come to understand. And I think having more confidence in yourself and the game can change everything because it helps in the long run. If you dwell on all the bad things, then you're not really going to excel or get any better. You have to just believe in yourself and put in more work. If you put in more work, then those things will come and work out. Those results may not come as fast as you want them to, but I know eventually they will come. So you just have to understand that sometimes it is a struggle, but everybody struggles. Yeah. You may not can see it on some people's faces or how they practice or if they get angry or mad, but I can guarantee you that most of us have had those struggles within this game. Like just comparison and thinking about maybe we're not good enough, or what am I putting all this work in for? Because I don't see it paying off like I want it to.
Yeah. There's a great quote, comparison is the thief of joy. And that's so true, that you might be on chapter 4 in your shooting, and you might be comparing yourself to somebody on their chapter 30, right? And that's not a fair comparison, but you don't know that person's backstory, right? All you know is you see a number associated next to their name, but you don't know the work that they've taken to get there. But in my opinion, nor should you worry about it, right? I think the mindset, like you alluded to, you can't just worry about the outcome. If your mindset is worried about outcome, you're living in the future, right? You don't know what could or couldn't happen there. And if you're dwelling on it, you're living in the past, right? So where a performance can be had is in the present, right? So just you right here, right now, in this present moment, what does it take to break these 2 birds and nothing more than that? We know the set of pressures. We know what's required. We know what scores have to be shot to win. But none of that stuff can be in your mind while you're trying to compete and while you're trying to, shoot your best on that. I mean, you got to put the work in the training, and then you got to go out and just let it rip and see what happens. And, I always tell people, if you shoot your personal best that day and then, somebody bests you on that, you can't be upset, right? I mean, you just shot your personal best. So, yes, do we measure ourselves by the score at the end of the day? Of course we do, right? But that isn't, I think the point that I'm trying to make here is it has nothing to do with your self-worth. It has nothing to do with, the way your teammates are going to look at you, your coaches or your parents, right? Your identity is established at birth, right? That is, you don't have to set out to prove that kind of stuff. So I wanted to kind of take people through that, because I know that's a lot of pressure on young athletes to perform, and the scores are higher than ever.
Right.
And, it's just crazy that the numbers that are being shot, but yeah, you got to manage that pressure. That is real. So doing all that, I've found a lot to put my mind at ease is put in the work, just like you said, right? Because when you show up to the tournament, you feel prepared. You're not nearly as nervous as if you hadn't prepared for that. And you got yourself in a shoot off at Forest City, and I saw that you knew you were going to win that shoot.
Yes.
Like what statement did you make when you went to go for that shoot off?
I knew I was telling myself, I've got this. Today, nobody's going to beat me, because I'm just in that zone.
You really meant that when you said it.
I did. I think sometimes that I'll tell myself, like, I've got this, but then there's that little devil on your shoulder, like, you can't do this. Like, there's still a little bit of doubt. But on that day, I knew that I had come up and I was going to show that I was going to beat everybody out there. Like, it didn't matter if, they were just as good, that I was going to fight it out until the end.
And that's true confidence, that when you say I got this and you sort of half-hearted mean it,
right?
Like, that's false confidence, right? You can fake that, but the true confidence, it just shows through in this game, and that's where the performance has to be had. So that's really cool. I think there's a lot of good things in there that would inspire, a young shooter that's going through a rough patch. And I think that's some pretty good words of wisdom there. So moving forward, so you're a senior, you're about to graduate, are the first MSA associate instructor, which I couldn't be more happy to have you. I saw when we started working together, you're just pure love for the game, like just love it. And I think anybody that's talked with you or shot with you, that is just so apparent to them that you love it. So, but tell me about your experience with coaching. I know you've worked with some youth lately, and about that.
And it's been such a joy too, because I feel like acquiring this coaching opportunity that I'm able to give back to the sport that raised me and that I truly love, that I've grown up in. So being at that age where I really relate to those youth shooters, because I've been there and I've been in their shoes before, I think it's really special for me to be able to not only coach them on the game, but also help them overcome some of the obstacles that even I experienced, because I want them to be able to move smoother and better than maybe I did growing up. and not getting maybe some of the best coaching advice until later on. I know that meeting all the kids and some of their parents has been such a cool experience, and the relationships that I've made thus far has been really cool. I've loved every single second of it. It definitely was something that I did not expect that I would be doing now. I know I got my level 1 NSCA certification back in July of 2023, and I was so nervous. Like, I remember preparing for that, and I remember going to Adairsville to get it done and take it and everything. I was so nervous because I remember being the only girl there, and I was so intimidated. I was like, oh my goodness, all these things. Like, I'm so nervous. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pass this class. I didn't really know what to expect other than talking with you and your experiences and getting your certification for everything. But it definitely was something that I don't regret doing. And it's just been such a cool journey to be able to coach and mentor these kids and be able to just pour into them and always be there, not only to cheer them on, but if they ever needed a word of advice for anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, it's our job as coaches, to shortcut their learning curve, right? So the struggles that we've all faced, right? We've been there, we've done that, and we can, prevent some of that for them so they don't have to get bogged down in that stuff. Overall, specifically, you mentioned that you were the only female at the NSCA level 1.
Yeah.
This is a predominantly male dominated sport. And so I think painting the picture of you being a young female shooter, and I see one of the main reasons I identified you for being an MSA instructor is you can connect with the female shooters. You can connect with everybody,
Right.
but specifically those young female shooters. And you have this big sister vibe about you that they just love, right? We've got Paisley Myers out there, and she on the shoot-offs, right? You can talk to her, you hug on her and squeeze her and do all the things. And that's what they need in that moment, right? And you can provide that as their coach.
Mhm.
And that's such a cool thing, to see that you provide for them. So I think, obviously you connecting with those female students, but you can coach everybody, right? You're able to talk to everybody, but I just see such a knack with the young female shooters. That's only going to continue to grow for you. That's very exciting. Talking about female shooters, what equipment, that seems to be some of the challenges that female shooters face is, the guns, the equipment, the shells, all those things, kind of built for the guys. So what kind of advice would you give, or what equipment works the best for you? And what do you shed some light on that?
So I would definitely say for a female, looking at your ladies model shotguns that are made for women, because I think it really helps and has changed the game because of like our length pulls and the grip radiuses, us having smaller hands, and they just fit you better. They're made just for you. I've loved my Siren Julia. I got it when I graduated high school, and it has truly been a gun that's never failed me. It's perfect because it just feels comfortable. Like, I don't feel like it's way too heavy. I don't feel like I'm struggling to kind of reach that trigger or anything like that. It's just something that's so effective and so fitting for women and females in this game that I think it's just super important to go try them out before you buy them. I know I have gotten guns from Old Hudson in Sparta, and what I love about them is they'll allow you to try some of those guns before you actually buy them, which I think is something that not a lot of gun clubs offer. And for me, it was just way better to be able to know that that gun's going to fit you before you bought it. And my Siren has been just amazing. It just fits so well, and it feels so good compared to some of the guns that are not made or designated for ladies and women.
Yeah. And I think when the length of pull's too long, you're living in the back of the stock and you can't place it, you can't reach the trigger.
Right.
But a lot of times people don't realize when you're compensating for the weight of those barrels or the length of the gun, your form breaks down, right? You start leaning back and your weight's on your back hip because you're changing your center of gravity to compensate for the weight of that gun. So yeah, that's some things people should absolutely look for. If you got your daughters looking to get a gun, or just a female shooter in general, a small stature, in the semi-autos, that's not a bad option either. They have that L4S, that's a pretty light semi-auto. The A400 is hard to go wrong with. But yeah, I mean, that Julia has fit you really well and you shoot it great.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then talk about, something that I see often is, maybe mom or dad, just swung by Walmart on the way to the lesson or something. And they show up with some ounce and an eighth, 13 for their, 98-pound daughter or something. I mean, shell wise, what have you done over the years? When you started out, did you start with a 12 gauge? Did you start with a 20? What did you do? What's worked for you?
So I can remember that at the beginning when we would practice at like my grandfather's backyard, we had 3 Promatic machines, and it was just when I was getting introduced and started in the sport, and I shot a semi-automatic Benelli, and I remember it was 20 gauge, and I shot that for a while, and then I moved on to an over and under 20 gauge, a Beretta Vittoria, and I loved that. It was awesome because it wasn't too heavy, and I feel like it's not a bad thing to get your son or your daughter to shoot a 20 gauge first, because I did for a little bit. And then I advanced to the 12 gauge, which I've loved. And it was just an easy transition not to jump straight into a 12 gauge, which I feel like some parents feel as though I don't want them to grow so fast and then grow out of it. But my thing is, I would much rather them have a 20 gauge first, especially if their build is not or can't necessarily handle a 12 gauge at first. It's not a bad thing if you're shooting a 20 gauge. There's kids on the Strong Rock team that shoot 20 gauges right now. And there's nothing wrong with that because it can still hit some of the super far birds out there. But I feel like definitely with shells, if they showed up with some heavy loads, you can't ever go wrong with the 20 gauge shells. Their recoil isn't as heavy as some of the 12 gauges can be. And having a semi-automatic, because sometimes those over and unders, they can pack a little more punch than your semi-autos can be. So I would definitely recommend getting them into a 12 or a 20 gauge first. And then as they slowly progress and gain more strength and all that good stuff, then you can start introducing a 12 gauge. And I remember when I got into the 12 gauge, jumping into maybe not an over and under first, but a semi-auto because of that recoil difference that those.
Yeah. And you could play with that shell so much. Fiocchi's got a wonderful 20 gauge trainer load. It's like 1,100 feet per second or less. I think it's like even less than that. But anyways, they're really, really light recoil. And there's some 12 gauge loads out there. There's 7/8 ounce. Game Bore has the rose gold shell, which I absolutely love. That's a great shell. But yeah, there's a lot of just don't feed the gun any old shell, because you gotta, the advantage that you're going to get with the extra pellets and everything, the trade-off to their body is totally not worth that. So yeah, that's great advice on the guns. Is there anything else specific that, do you have any vests, or what do you find fits you the best, and would you recommend for everybody else?
So I would really recommend, I've had Pila Outlaw X7 the longest time during my shooting journey, and I love them because you don't have anything blocking your vision, because they're frameless at the bottom and you can change those lenses and all that good stuff. So I think those have definitely really been a staple in my shooting journey. And I've always recommended those to other shooters, especially if they want to do this for a long time and they're interested in competing in college. It's definitely a good investment. I've also loved my Sound Gear earplugs. I just recently got those not too long ago, and they have been awesome because I can just hear anything. I can change the modes on them. They've just been really helpful and useful, especially since you use them as well and you talk so many good things about them. When it comes to carrying all the stuff, like your glasses, your earplugs, your ammo, I feel like bags are super important too, especially sometimes when we compete in college, we don't always have golf carts. So sometimes we have we have to walk from different courses or from station to station. And there's a Go Outdoors products. It's GPS Sporting Clays backpack. And I've had that ever since I have been at Emmanuel. And it is awesome. It has so many different compartments, and you can wear it as a backpack. You can wear it on one shoulder, both. And it holds just about everything. I can even fit my Pila case in there, and it fits that, my chokes, ammo, if I need to put an extra pair of shoes in the bottom, if it's raining that day, like it holds everything. When it comes to vests, I've honestly tried a bunch of them. I've loved Bear Pelt and I've also loved Castellani. We had Bear Pelt and it's so awesome that you can customize those. And then back when I was competing through middle school and high school, and now like my Castellani vests are awesome. They're just so comfortable and so versatile, and you can design them any way you want to, which is awesome. You can customize those. And working with both of those people with the Bear Pelt and Castellani, everybody's so nice and so sweet, and they're always happy to help and figure out those sizings for you and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I know you've done a lot with that. So not only do you, shoot for the team, but you do a lot for the team, and you line up all the travel for the events and registration. But I know you've been in on getting everybody's vests as well too.
Yes, it's definitely so much fun being a graphic design major and being able to kind of help design some of the things that we've had, our jerseys, all the vests, different vests we've had. I know it's super cool to see what all we can come up with and getting feedback from Coach and Miss Gina and touching base with them like, okay, how can we make this look better? Aligning everything with the school's colors, because sometimes schools, they'll change like their primary colors or their secondary colors. So it's still making sure that you look cohesive or consistent with the other athletic teams.
Yeah.
It's been so much fun to be able to have a hand in that.
Well, you've done a great job. I've seen the team's jerseys this year, and they look awesome. So everybody looks super professional. So we've covered a lot of the different, part of your backstory with everything and equipment. Coming up here pretty soon, you're going to be graduating, and I know you're going to want to do some more coaching, and you're going to continue to compete. But what do you see coaching in the future for you? Is that something that you want to pursue more full time, or what do you think you want to do with that?
Absolutely. I definitely know that I want to stay in this sport for as long as I can because of how it's just like a big family. I love being able to travel to the different gun clubs, and you see somebody that you met that was from like Illinois, and then you see them in a different place, and it's like you just have so many familiar faces from competition to competition. Coaching wise, I definitely want to do that more. It's been hard to navigate with school and when I'm able to be back home. But right now I've been giving lessons at Griffin Gun Club in Cherokee Rose, which has been, it's so awesome to have two great gun clubs in your backyard practically, and being able to offer help and assistance to any of the youth shooters or adults. I know that it's not always necessarily kids, although I do have a passion for helping the kids because I can relate to them on a different level. I also do enjoy helping out the parents. And if they ever want to grab any shotguns, the coaching is just so fun because it opens your eyes and you just appreciate it more, appreciate the game a little bit more. And you can also still be learning through that coaching process. Like there's things I'll help some kids with that I'm like, man, I completely almost forgot about that. Like that would honestly help me more in my game.
Yeah.
So it's like refreshing your memory, but also being able to help them. And the joy in seeing their faces when they hit their first target is like unimaginable. Like it just warms your heart and grows your love for the sport through coaching. So I definitely think when I graduate, I want to coach as much as I can and also be able to do graphic design things.
Yeah, the coaching side of it, you learn a lot from your students. They think you're teaching them. They're also teaching you a bunch,
Yes.
As you go with that. And I know we've been offering youth clinics, and that's been a bunch of fun. And we're going to do more of those throughout the summer. And, just as the calendar year, we were talking about that just yesterday, but that's exciting. The graphic design, is definitely something, but I definitely see you playing some role in the industry itself. For what that might be, I don't know. But so I definitely see you being part of the industry with this. And after graduation, are you going to continue to compete in NSCA, or what do you think? What do you see for yourself after that?
So I absolutely love competing in the NSCA because of all the different places you can go and all the registered targets you can see, because I think that it very much prepares you more than just practicing at your home course. Like you see birds that you won't see in your backyard at your gun club. I want to still continue to compete in NSCA registered events and tournaments. And I also would still love to go to nationals because that's such a cool experience that I feel like everybody should be able to go at least one time, because this past year that we went just a few months ago, we've been able to go to the huge weekend where everybody's there, where they're doing all of the north versus south and all that good stuff during the nighttime and things like that in the evenings. And it was just a really good experience. The shoot is very well ran all the way around. Having to shoot a main for 4 days was super nice, and seeing all the pros on one field competing, battling out, it was so awesome. It was such a good experience. So I truly hope I get to still compete with all the NSCA things.
Yeah. Well, that's great to hear that you're going to continue with that. So, how do people stay in touch or get in touch with you? And how do they, are you active on socials? How can they see you on there?
Yes. So I actually have an Instagram account designated to my shooting. It's Annie's Clays. And I started that when I started my collegiate shooting journey, which was really cool. So you're able to see what competitions I've been to, kind of walking you through what my shooting life and journey has been. And also you can see that animation video of all the 3 different disciplines, which is super cool. So that's Annie's Clays on Instagram. And then I also have a MSA email, which is just annistonmsa@gmail.com. And you can also reach out through there, and I will get back to you as quick as I can.
That's awesome. Well, Anniston, you are a awesome ambassador for the sport. I think anybody that meets you would say the same, and really enjoyed having you on the show. I'm very excited to have you as an associate instructor with me.
Absolutely.
And we're going to keep tabs and just keep moving forward, and it's going to be a good time. So thanks for being on the show. Appreciate your time, and we'll catch up soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Remember to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform to the Clay Lab so you don't miss an episode. Check out MatsonShootingAcademy.com or reach out to Cody at MatsonShootingAcademy@gmail.com. Consider joining as a channel member too by clicking that join button below on YouTube for early access to videos and podcasts. We'll catch you here next time on the Matson Shooting Academy podcast.